Alright everyone, take a seat. Here's the deal. Your mom called. She wants you to go pick up some bread on your way home from school, right? So now you have two options. You can either run to the grocery store, which is like 4 miles round trip, or you can take the bus, which is a lot further, about 8 miles round trip, but you don't have to do any running. Which option would you pick? Now, what about if the bus ride took you through a really dangerous neighborhood and there was a good chance you might get mugged? If you were carrying valuables, you might have had to pay protection money to a band of thugs who claimed the right of the road. And if you refused, well, you got whacked on the noggin and handed over your stuff. These incidents happen mostly along the roads near large cities, especially Memphis, which was one of the largest cities in the region during the Old Kingdom. Sometimes the river was too shallow, or there was a strong current, or the barge simply capsized. But they had a few drawbacks. For one, you needed lots of oxen to pull a cart. A single cart might require 8 oxen, which meant that pulling a cart was usually a job reserved for slaves. Carts also needed good roads to travel efficiently, and the roads in ancient Egypt weren't great. The terrain was rough and bumpy and there were holes everywhere. So if you were traveling in a cart, you better hold on tight. Another downside of using carts was that they left ruts in the road. Those ruts would fill with water during the rainy season and turn to mud, which would eventually destroy the cart. That's why the majority of the roads in ancient Egypt were made of stone. The roads were built by conscripted farmers during the flood season, when they couldn't farm anyway. But building roads was hard. Dirty work and the stones often came loose, creating hazardous terrain. Plus, nobody repaired the roads, so the whole thing was kind of a wash. But the main reason ancient Egyptians stopped riding on barges was because the government cracked down on them. After a couple of centuries, the pharaohs realized that people riding on barges were getting robbed left and right, so they passed a law that banned private barges. From that point on, only the government could build and operate barges. That meant that many wealthy Egyptians turned to land vehicles instead, specifically animal-powered carts. If you wanted to avoid getting robbed, you could take the long way around. For example, the journey between Memphis and Thebes took 21 days on foot, but only 10 days by boat. During the New Kingdom, the government started building a road system connecting all the major cities, and they also started a postal service. But it wasn't quite like what we think of as public transportation. The postal service was mainly for delivering messages, not people, and most of the roads were just wide enough for a chariot to travel down them. It would have been pretty difficult to squeeze in pedestrians. Besides, ancient Egyptians probably didn't see the point. Most people could travel faster on foot, and it was just as cheap. There wasn't much of a transit system in ancient Egypt, because most people didn't need one. The only real alternative to walking was riding on a government-run barge, which was extremely dangerous. So for the most part, ancient Egyptians walked everywhere. The problem was the boats traveled along the Nile, and the Nile was filled with pirates. Would you still pick the bus? Well, did you know that 4,000 years ago in ancient Egypt, this was basically the choice facing everyone? But there weren't enough ships to cover the entire length of the river, and many ships were needed to guard important trade routes. So there were plenty of opportunities for pirates to strike. In fact, one pirate named Anku even boasted about his exploits in a poem. He wrote about having chased a ship full of women across the river, jumped onto the ship and stolen the lady's perfume. So if you valued your life and your property, you might have been tempted to just walk across the desert, even if it took weeks. Because as you'll see today, the pyramids were the only game in town, and sometimes walking was actually safer than taking the mass transit system. During the Old Kingdom, there were lots of small vessels used to transport goods and people. Many of them looked like oversized canoes. But the main type of boat used in ancient Egypt was the solar barge. A solar barge was shaped like a single piece of papyrus and could reach up to 75 feet in length and carry a whopping 100 passengers. Unfortunately, the reeds that made these barges were pretty flimsy, so they fell apart pretty quickly. A new barge had to be constructed every year. Despite that, people still traveled by boat on the Nile because it was faster than walking and the risk of piracy was worth it. Welcome to my channel. When you hear about life in ancient Egypt, you probably imagine lush landscapes, gigantic pyramids, and maybe even some mummies. But ancient Egyptians lived along the Nile River, a place with a lot of open desert. So how exactly did people get around? To understand how people got around ancient Egypt, let's start with the geography. Ancient Egypt was situated along the Nile River, one of the longest rivers in the world, and because it had all that nice flowing water, it became one of the most fertile regions on Earth. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. In ancient Egypt, the Nile River overflowed once or twice a year, depositing silt and fertilizer along its banks. That made it possible for ancient Egyptians to grow crops. If you want to farm something, you need access to water, so the land along the Nile was incredibly valuable. Of course, not everyone could live on the banks of the Nile. Much of Egypt was a arid desert, and the further you ventured away from the river, the harder it was to survive. But people needed to travel across the desert to trade goods or just visit friends or family. So they had a few different options. First, there was the walking option. Walking was usually pretty safe, although travelers had to watch out for desert winds that could blow sand into their eyes and make breathing difficult. It also didn't help that much of ancient Egypt was incredibly flat, so it was easy to get lost. People walking from north to south often ended up going in circles. Another hazard of walking was wild animals. Fortunately for ancient Egyptians, big cats didn't roam the desert much because they preferred hunting at night, and humans were nocturnal. Instead, travelers had to watch out for jackals, hyenas, wolves, and dogs. Yes, dogs. During the Old Kingdom period, people kept dogs as pets and livestock, but they would often run away and join packs of wild dogs. If you ran into a pack of feral canines, your best bet was to protect your head and hope for the best. One story from ancient Egypt tells the tale of a man who was so badly mauled by a dog that he turned blue. He managed to get himself to a nearby hospital, but tragically died on the way. But there were other dangers along the road. In addition to wild animals, thieves and bandits lurked in certain areas, and travelers often got robbed. During the Old Kingdom, the Pharaoh kept a navy to patrol the river and protect travelers. But people did travel by boat throughout ancient Egypt. Of course, not everyone could afford to ride on a barge, and even the richest people couldn't always get on a barge. Carts were great because they were fast, efficient, and could carry heavy loads. That brings us back to our original question. Did anyone use public transportation in ancient Egypt? Yes, kind of. If you want to learn more about ancient Egypt, click here to watch this video. Have you ever stumbled upon an old, worn-out textbook, your fingers tracing the faded ink of a forgotten language? Or maybe you've come across a crumbling wall, feeling the rough stones beneath your touch, imagining the echoes of laughter and life that once resonated within its confines. How do such remnants of the past impact us, the inheritors of history? They don't just tell stories, they evoke emotions. They are hieroglyphs, the ancient Egyptian writing system, each stroke telling a part of the pharaoh's story. But there's more here. Hidden in plain sight are dangerous curses, warnings meant to protect the tomb from intruders. Have you ever gazed up at the night sky, lost in the immensity of the cosmos, wondering about the vast expanse beyond our world? That SY Brilliant S scientific thinking course is perfect for anyone who has ever looked up at the night sky and wondered, how does this work? By learning the fundamentals, you'll unlock a deeper understanding of the universe around you. With Brilliant, you can learn at your own pace, fitting learning into your busy life without the stress of exams. Whether you want to understand the science behind solar panels, neural networks, astrophysics, special relativity, or computational biology, Brilliant has a course for you. They're constantly adding new courses to keep you engaged and curious. Start learning today and let your curiosity guide you on this incredible journey of discovery. They speak of retribution, of harm befalling those who dare disturb the Pharaoh's eternal rest. As you continue your descent, you realize you're not alone. The air grows heavy with unseen eyes upon you. Suddenly, the flickering lamplight casts eerie shadows, giving life to the mythical creatures guarding the tomb. You see the jackal-headed Anubis watching intently, and the winged vultures of Nukahet circling overhead. Their presence, both fascinating and terrifying, serves as a reminder of the pharaoh's connection to the divine and the price one might pay for trespassing. Your journey culminates in the most sacred space of all, the burial chamber. Here, the pharaoh's spirit is believed to have rested, but the atmosphere is thick with tension. The mere presence of death clings to the air, whispering tales of mortality and the mysteries of the afterlife. You stand before the sarcophagus, marveling at its grandeur, yet sensing the weight of history pressing down. The closer you get to the pharaoh's resting place, the more real the possibility that the spirits of ancient Egypt are reaching out, trying to communicate their message. The warnings become more insistent, the atmosphere more charged. This is a moment of reckoning. a test of your courage and respect for the dead. Will you heed the signs and retreat, or will you push forward, determined to uncover the secrets that lie ahead? The choice, like the fate of many explorers before you, is yours. They awaken a sense of wonder, of loss, and at times, a deep unease. The reins of power were then handed to Horemheb, a general who played a pivotal role in restoring stability to the kingdom. As you enter Horemheb's tomb, you're immediately struck by the opulence surrounding you. The walls are adorned with vibrant paintings depicting scenes from daily life in ancient Egypt. There's Horemheb inspecting soldiers, ensuring the strength of his army, and images of him worshipping various gods, demonstrating his piety. But as you progress through the tomb, the tone shifts. The paintings become more grandiose, more symbolic. You witness Horemheb smiting his enemies, asserting his dominance, and see him ushered into the presence of Ra, the sun god, symbolizing his divine favor. Deeper still, the imagery becomes more solemn, more focused on the afterlife. You encounter the goddess of wisdom, Nukbet, and the god of the dead, Osiris, hinting at the mysteries that await beyond the earthly realm. The journey culminates in the burial chamber, where a massive stone sarcophagus dominates the room. On it, Horemheb's name is inscribed, a constant reminder of his identity even in death. The chamber itself is dimly lit, casting long shadows that dance with the flickering torchlight. This is a space where the boundaries between life and death seem thin, where the spirit of the great general lingers, perhaps waiting to be acknowledged. As you explore, you'll notice that Horemheb's tomb is filled with symbols of protection, amulets engraved with protective spells, and statues of deities strategically placed to ward off evil spirits. Every step you take echoes with the belief that death is not an end, but a transition, a passage into a realm where the rules of the mortal world no longer apply. The spirit of Horemheb, and as you stand in the shadow of his colossal statue, you might just feel his presence. A reminder that in this place, the line between the living and the dead blurs, and the greatest pharaohs are not immune to the mysteries of the afterlife. Imagine, if you can, a team of archaeologists carefully brushing sand and dirt away from an ancient Egyptian tomb. What secrets does it hold? Perhaps mummies swathed in linen, artifacts of untold value, or maybe just a silent testament to a life lived thousands of years ago. Let's delve into the enigma of King Tutankhamun's tomb. Discovered in 1922 by the renowned archaeologist Howard Carter, this wasn't just any tomb. It was a gateway to the unknown, a portal to a world where pharaohs walked among us. As you step inside, you're greeted by scenes of everyday life. There are depictions of Tutankhamun hunting birds in a papyrus boat, his face beaming with youthful joy. But as you venture deeper, the mood shifts, the paintings becoming more haunting, more cryptic. You encounter the king of the underworld, Osiris, surrounded by the mysteries of the afterlife. Each step brings you closer to the heart of the tomb, where the final chamber awaits. Here, in the burial chamber, time seems to stand still. You find the sarcophagus of the boy king, intricately carved, yet concealing a secret. Inside lies the mummy of Tutankhamun, his face obscured by time, yet his spirit lingering, it seems. But this is no ordinary burial. The walls are adorned with images of Anubis, the guardian of the dead, and scenes from the Book of the Dead, offering a glimpse into the rituals meant to guide the pharaoh's soul through the underworld. This isn't just a tomb, it's a journey, a tangible link to a time when pharaohs ruled and myths came alive. But what happens when the veil separating the world of the living from the realm of the dead begins to blur? What? When the artifacts unearthed are not just relics of a bygone era, but potential keys to understanding a world shrouded in mystery. If you've ever wondered about the chilling side of discovery, how fear and fascination intertwine when unearthing the past, join me on a journey back to ancient Egypt, where the dust of ages holds both answers and unsettling truths. In the heart of Egypt, nestled amidst the majestic pyramids and sprawling tombs, lies a secret hidden for millennia. As you explore, you'll notice peculiar markings on the walls, cryptic symbols that seem to hold a deeper meaning. After King Tutankhamun's untimely death, Egypt was plunged into turmoil, and just as the secrets of the pharaohs captivate us, so too do the enigmatic puzzles of the universe. Hello, and welcome to my channel. Today, let's travel back in time to explore a hidden gem of ancient Egypt, the enigmatic city of Dur el Medina. From the grand, albeit ultimately erased, vision of Akhenaten, We now descend from the royal narrative to a place of quiet, extraordinary revelation. Imagine stepping away from the monumental temples and the Pharaoh's grand pronouncements, and instead finding a window directly into the intimate daily lives of the very people who built the royal tombs. It was, in essence, a company village, a self-contained community established exclusively for the skilled artisans and craftsmen who toiled in the Valley of the Kings and the Valley of the Queens. For almost 500 years, from approximately 1550 to 1070 BC, generation after generation of these specialized workers lived, loved, worked, and died within its walls. Each house tells a story of its own, bearing silent witness to generations of laughter, work, and quiet contemplation. Your stroll through the village takes you past workshops where the tools of the trade lie ready for the next day. Here, the legacy of the pharaohs comes alive. Parchment and ostraka litter the ground, each inscribed with ancient hieroglyphs. Some tell tales of everyday transactions, while others record the names of the deceased and the rituals performed for their safe passage into the afterlife. Among the most intriguing are the workers' contracts, legal documents that grant each craftsman the right to participate in the creation of the tombs. These relics serve as a tangible link to the past, allowing us to hear the echoes of voices long gone. The wind whispers tales of the artisans who once walked these very streets. Their footsteps now echoes in the chambers of time. You've walked in the footsteps of those who shaped the afterlife of kings, and in doing so, you've discovered a piece of their humanity. But you carry with you the spirit of Deir el-Medina, the memory of a time when skilled hands gave life to eternity. Thank you for joining us on this journey through time. If you enjoyed this episode, please remember to subscribe. Together, let's keep exploring, keep dreaming, and keep discovering the hidden gems of our world. Until next time, keep asking questions, keep seeking answers, and above all, keep your minds open to the endless wonders that await us in the grand tapestry of history. As you step back into the modern world, you're forever changed. The grandeur of the tombs, the intimacy of the village, the echo of ancient voices in the wind, all blend in your mind to form a mosaic of ancient life. And you wonder, what stories do the sands of time hold? What other secrets of the past await discovery? Perhaps there are more villagers like Deir al-Medina, more echoes of human lives waiting to be heard. You understand now that behind the grandeur of the Valley of the Kings lies a tale of everyday life, of laughter and work, of love and loss, of a community bound together by shared purpose and dreams. Above you, the desert sky blazes with a tapestry of stars, a celestial canvas that has witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations. Gazing up, you realize that the very pharaohs whose tombs these villagers crafted are now dust, their legacies preserved only in stone and legend. For this is not just a village, but a community of artisans who played a pivotal role in creating the magnificent tombs that dot the nearby valley. The stalls, though long abandoned, still hold the promise of life. Amidst the demands of crafting eternal monuments, the residents found time for leisure. In quieter corners of the village, you might imagine children playing traditional games, their laughter echoing through the narrow streets. As dusk settles, the sky transforms into a canvas of fiery hues. The coolness of the evening brings a respite from the day's heat, and the villagers gather in small groups, sharing stories and laughter. Music might drift from a home where a family enjoys a traditional meal, the rhythmic beat of drums accompanying songs of love and life. Vibrant fabrics, perhaps some dyed in the nearby Nile, lay draped over makeshift tables. The flickering light of oil lamps spills from windows, casting dancing shadows on the walls. Inside the homes, families tuck in for the night, their day's work done, their bodies weary, but their spirits unbroken. The silence of the desert night is broken only by the soft murmur of conversation and the gentle murmur of prayers as the villagers bid farewell to the daylight hours and embrace the mysteries of the night. Nearby, a vendor arranges baskets of fresh fruit, perhaps figs and dates plucked from nearby orchards. And in another corner, the glint of copper and bronze tools hints at the skilled craftsmanship that flourished here. Within these modest homes lived the architects, sculptors, painters, and scribes who brought the final resting places of royalty to life. Their craft was one of reverence and skill, transforming cold stone into canvases of enduring beauty. Each chisel mark, each brushstroke bore the imprint of their artistry, ensuring that pharaohs like Ramesses III and Tutankhamun would rest in places of unmatched magnificence. The houses are simple yet charming, reflecting the practical needs of the people who called them home. Typically, they consist of a few small rooms built around a central courtyard. The layout is functional, with each space serving a specific purpose: a place for cooking, for sleeping, for raising families, for sharing stories and meals with neighbors. In one corner, perhaps, a father teaches his son the intricate art of a trade that will one day be passed down. In another, a mother prepares dinner, the air filled with the aroma of spices and freshly baked bread. What makes Deir el-Medina so exceptional is the sheer volume and preservation of its written records and archaeological remains. Unlike most ancient sites, which yield only fragments of daily life, here, thousands of ostraka, pottery shards, or limestone flakes used as writing surfaces, along with papyri, tools, and personal belongings have been unearthed. The materials were not always plentiful, and the deadlines set by the royal court were unrelenting. Yet the artisans of Deir el-Medina rose to meet these challenges, driven by a combination of duty, pride, and perhaps a touch of magic. They created works of art that have survived millennia, allowing us to marvel at the splendor of a bygone era. These aren't grand historical decrees. They are the mundane, the intimate, the wonderfully human details of ordinary existence. This window is a remarkable, perfectly preserved village known as Deir el-Medina. Step into the past and experience what life was like in this hidden gem of ancient Egypt. Join us as we uncover the secrets of Deir. Nestled in a secluded valley on the west bank of the Nile, far from the bustling capitals and the sweeping desert expanses, Deir el-Medina was not a typical Egyptian town. You stand at the entrance to the village, your gaze taking in the rugged beauty of the cliffs that encircle this secluded community. Behind you, the Valley of the Kings lies in majestic silence, the final resting place of many pharaohs, including the legendary. But today, your focus is on the life that once thrived within these ancient walls. Now, let's embark on a journey back in time. Picture yourself arriving at Deir el-Medina in the late afternoon, just as the sun begins its slow descent towards the horizon. As you venture deeper into the village, the fading light paints long shadows that dance between the rows of mud brick houses. The life of a village might seem removed from the grand narratives of history, but here at Deir el-Medina, the boundaries blur. But this wasn't a life without challenges. The work was demanding, often conducted in dimly lit galleries deep beneath the earth. Your journey through Deir el-Medina is enriched by the numerous artifacts discovered here. As you continue your exploration, you stumble upon an outdoor market where vendors once displayed their wares. Life in Deir el-Medina was not solely about work. However, as the last rays of sunlight fade away, the village is enveloped in a blanket of darkness. In the stillness of the night, the spirit of Deir el-Medina comes alive. Your journey through Deir el-Medina has been a humbling experience. As the moon climbs higher in the night sky, you know it's time to depart, and so your journey continues, fueled by the spirit of adventure and the insatiable curiosity that drives us to seek out the whispers of our ancestors. In the grand narrative of history, we are continuing our series exploring the lives of ancient people through archaeology, and today we are heading back to ancient Egypt. Ancient Egyptians were undoubtedly a highly stratified society. At the top of the pyramid sat the pharaoh, the divine king, who personified the union between the human and divine realms. Below him were the royal family and close advisors, followed by the elite class of scribes, soldiers, and officials. Then came the bulk of the population, the artisans, merchants, farmers, and laborers who sustained the kingdom's economy and infrastructure, typically constructed from mud brick. These homes featured courtyards, storage rooms, and multiple chambers for family members. Many had access to luxuries like bathrooms, although basic sanitation was more common among the elites. Furniture was practical, including chairs made from wood or stone and low tables for dining. The interior walls were often adorned with paintings depicting daily life or scenes from Egyptian mythology, showcasing the influence religion had on every facet of their lives. They worshipped a pantheon of gods, each associated with different aspects of nature and human endeavor. The ancient Egyptians were not only skilled farmers, artisans, and traders, they were also avid learners and thinkers. The Nile River was the backbone of their trade network, allowing for the transportation of goods both within Egypt and to other civilizations. Architects and engineers designed these projects, while artists and sculptors brought them to life, creating masterpieces that have endured for millennia. The middle class had a crucial role in maintaining the infrastructure of the kingdom. This included road maintenance, irrigation systems, and public buildings. If you enjoyed this episode, please remember to like and subscribe. Your support means the world to us and helps us bring more fascinating stories of our past to life. Until next time, keep exploring and stay curious. Their efforts ensured that trade could continue, the fields could be irrigated, and communities remained functional. The maintenance of order and justice also fell to the middle class, who often served as local officials or judges. They were responsible for settling disputes and upholding the laws of the kingdom, contributing to the stability of Egyptian society. They traded goods such as linen, papyrus, perfumes, and jewelry with neighboring kingdoms, fostering cultural exchanges and diplomatic ties. Political instability and economic uncertainty created challenges for the middle class. The traditional ways of life were disrupted, and many Egyptians had to adapt to changing circumstances. Despite these challenges, the resilience of the Egyptian people, including the middle class, should not be underestimated. They adapted to new realities, continued to innovate, and contribute to the cultural richness of the kingdom. The artisans among the middle class produced goods ranging from pottery and textiles to furniture and jewelry. Their skills were highly valued, and many items were not only used for everyday life, but also served as offerings to the gods or grave goods for the afterlife. They had a sophisticated system of writing, one of the earliest in the world, and their scholars made significant contributions to mathematics, astronomy, and medicine. Their innovations in agriculture allowed for surplus food production, which supported a growing population and specialization of labor. This, in turn, led to the growth of towns and eventually cities, creating centers of trade and cultural exchange. They were not just cogs in the machinery of a vast empire, but individuals with hopes, dreams, and contributions to society. Their stories, though often overlooked, are vital to our understanding of ancient Egypt. By uncovering their lives, we gain a deeper appreciation for the richness and complexity of this ancient civilization. Their advancements in mathematics helped them in surveying land, tracking the stars, and building monumental structures like the pyramids. Their astronomical knowledge was so precise that they developed a solar calendar that is remarkably accurate even today. Their medical practices were advanced for their time, with a focus on preventive medicine and the use of herbal remedies. Gods like Ra, the sun god, Horus, the sky god, and Anubis, the god of the afterlife, were venerated. People often had personal shrines in their homes where they kept statues of their patron deities. Priests were respected members of society, and the middle class might have had family members who served in this role, helping to maintain the link between the gods and the people. Funerary practices in ancient Egypt were elaborate and deeply moving. The dead were initially buried in the ground, but over time, this practice evolved into underground galleries known as tombs. These tombs were filled with offerings, and the preserved body was placed in a coffin adorned with religious iconography. Afterlife was a central tenet of Egyptian religion, and every aspect of the burial was designed to ensure the deceased's safe passage into the next world. Mummification became the norm, a process of preserving the body by removing internal organs and wrapping the remains in bandages. This practice was originally limited to the elite, but later became accessible to the middle class as well. And at the bottom were the slaves, who were mostly prisoners of war, and the underpaid laborers working on large-scale building projects like the pyramids. As farmers, they had access to fresh produce such as vegetables, fruits, and grains. Fish from the Nile was a regular feature, and they also consumed dairy products and fowl. Meals might have consisted of bread dipped in vinegar or honey, alongside dishes made with onions, garlic, lentils, and fish. While not as extravagant as the feasts of the upper classes, their cuisine was flavorful and nourishing. Life for these people has been widely studied, but what about the people in the middle? During the hot summers, shorter versions of these dresses were worn, and sandals were commonly used for footwear. Board games were popular, with the most famous being a game similar to backgammon. Music was integral to their culture, with lyres and harps accompanying singing and dancing at festivals. The annual flooding of the Nile led to the creation of temporary islands of fertile land known as These areas were transformed into recreational spaces where the elite and commoners alike could enjoy picnics and sporting events. The ancient Egyptians loved poetry, and poets were often celebrated for their ability to capture the complexities of life through verse. The works of famous poets, like the love poems of Kim and the satirical verses of Sheneb, were cherished. For the upper classes, linen was often imported from across the Nile, while the middle class typically wore locally produced hemp or flax. Jewelry was not as prevalent among the middle classes, but when worn, it usually consisted of bracelets, rings and necklaces made from materials like copper, faience, and leather. Amulets were also popular, serving both as personal adornment and talismans for protection against evil spirits. Join us as we uncover the forgotten lives of the ancient Egyptian middle class. The ancient Egyptians kept detailed records of everything. Every aspect of their lives was documented meticulously on papyrus scrolls and clay tablets. Yet despite this, details of the everyday lives of the middle classes remain somewhat elusive. It seems the mighty pharaohs and enigmatic gods received most of the attention. Despite this, by analyzing what few records do exist, along with archaeological finds, we can piece together a picture of life for the middle classes in ancient Egypt. Life for the ancient Egyptians began with birth, a momentous event marked with 40-day celebrations and name-giving ceremonies. Unlike the royal lineage, which often had names signifying divine favor or strength, the names of middle-class Egyptians were more modest, sometimes linked to their physical attributes or occupations. Take, for instance, the name Kopere, meaning the heart is pleased. Common names reflected a simpler reality. Middle-class Egyptians were primarily farmers, artisans, traders, and soldiers. Their days were filled with practical concerns, making sure the fields were planted and the tools were sharpened, trading goods in local markets, or defending the kingdom's borders. Middle-class houses were not the grand palaces of the nobility, but they were comfortable abodes. Nonetheless, food played a central role in Egyptian culture, and the middle class enjoyed a varied diet. Living in ancient Egypt was functional yet fashionable. The traditional garb consisted of a simple white linen dress for men and women, often with a belt. Entertainment in ancient Egypt was a mix of leisure and cultural engagement. Religion was the backbone of Egyptian society, and the middle class actively participated in religious rituals. Death was seen as a transition, not an end, and the cycle of life, death and rebirth was celebrated. Trade was a vital aspect of Egyptian life, and the middle class played a crucial role as merchants and artisans. Pharaohs often initiated ambitious building projects, such as temples, tombs, and public works, which provided employment to many in the middle class. The end of the Old Kingdom marked a shift in Egyptian history. As we conclude our exploration of the lives of the middle class in ancient Egypt, we are left with a profound sense of their humanity. Thank you for joining us on this journey through time, and thanks for watching.